continue notes on chapter 3-4, finding an equation of a line. So we're going to continue from yesterday, but we are going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines, they never intersect, they never cross, they go on forever, and they run side by side. If you were looking at two equations of two lines, because this is, if you have an equation, that's a line, okay, as long as your x is just x and not x squared or x to the third or anything like that. So if I had two equations or two lines, and I was looking at the slopes, if their slopes were the same, then I would know that I had parallel lines. Perpendicular, they would look like this. They intersect and they form a right angle. If you had the slope 2/3 and you wanted to find the slope perpendicular to 2/3, you would flip the fraction and change the sign. So since this is 2/3, we're going to have a negative and flip it, which would be 3/2. So if this was a negative, then this would be a positive. But you always flip your fraction to have perpendicular slopes. We're going to do one example on parallel lines and then one example on perpendicular lines. So our notes are going to be pretty short tonight. When it says, for this equation, it says that you have a point and you have a line, and it says write an equation of a line given the point 4, -1. So let's pretend that this one right here, this line I'm going to draw, this is the line 2x plus 5y equals -10. It's not, but I'm pretending, like I'm just guessing. Let's say it looks like this. So this would be the old line. So they're going to give you an equation of an old line. I call it the old line. And it wants you to find a new equation parallel to that old line that goes through this point right here. So if I was going to draw a line parallel to it, I'd make sure it went through the point 4, 1, and it would be parallel to it. And this is the new line. So you're finding an equation of a new line that is parallel to the old one that goes through that point. That's what the directions are saying. In order to do that, you are going to want to use y equals mx plus b. And you're going to look at your line and go, okay, what's that line's slope? So step number 1, find slope of line. And it's talking about, I'm going to call it the old line. Okay, so when I look at this, I would do the opposite of a, which is 2, because that's in front of x, over b, which is 5. So I know that my slope is -2/5. So if I want to write an equation that's parallel to this old line, I know that my slope has to be -2/5. But then I need to find out what b is so I can write a new equation. So in order to do that, I have to plug in a point for x and y. Well, luckily it gave me a point. And that point is going, that's where that line is going to go through, that new point. So I'm going to plug in 4, 1. And I'm going to get 1 equals -8/5 plus b. And with my trick, you know that you can multiply everything by 5. So I'm going to have 5 equals -8 plus 5b. I add 8. I have 13 equals 5b. Divide by 5. b equals 13/5. So now I can write an equation. So we'll write step 2. What did we just do? We plugged in point and slope to find b of new line. We have to find a new line that goes through that point. So we did that, and we plugged in the point, and we found an equation. You know the equation always has a y and an x in it. So we're going to have a y and an x. You know that your slope was -2/5, and you found your b to be 13/5. Okay, so we have our equation, and now you need to write that equation in standard form. So write equation in standard form. Remember, standard form doesn't have any fractions and it doesn't have a negative in the front, that is. So when I move this over, I have 2 over 5, I'm just writing 3, 2 over 5, x plus y equals 13 over 5. We know it's a positive, but I can't have any fractions, so I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So I'm going to get 2x plus 5y equals 13, and this is my equation in standard form. So I found a new equation parallel to the old equation. Okay, and this would be my answer. Let's say for example number 2, we'll say that we wanted to find a perpendicular line. And I'm going to give you the same point, 4, 1, and I'm going to give you the same line as 2x plus 5y equals negative 10. Okay, so we know that we found that our slope was negative 2/5. That hasn't changed, has it? So we have to find our slope, which we knew was step number 1, looking here, was find the slope of the old line, and we know it's negative 2/5. But we need to find the perpendicular slope because we are finding the perpendicular line to this one. So I know that I flip my fraction and change the sign, so now it's a positive. Go back, look, what does step 2 say? Plug in point and slope. Okay, so we're going to plug in our point. We're going to use y equals mx plus b. We plug in the point and our perpendicular slope, which is 5 over 2, and we have to find b. I'm going to have 1 equals 20 over 2 plus b. 2 goes into 20 10 times. Subtract 10 to the other side. 9 equals b, and that's negative 9. So I found my b, so now I can write the equation. And I have plenty of room, so let's do it right here. My equation is going to have a y and an x in it. I know that my b is negative 9, and my slope was 5 halves. I now, according to my directions, need to write the equation in standard form. So I'm going to subtract 5 halves over to the other side. I know I can't have a negative, so I have to change all the signs. And I know I can't have a fraction, so I'm going to multiply everything by 2. And this is my equation in standard form.